Family history and all that goes with studying the life and times of our ancestors is an increasingly popular pastime. For some, it is a passion. For them, the thrill of the chase for their ancestors that can take weeks, months and even years is an experience that cannot be bettered. The State Records Authority of New South Wales holds the New South Wales State Archives. These are the official records created by successive New South Wales governments from 1788 onwards. This may sound rather dry, but the archives include many records about people who had contact or dealings with the government. There are all sorts of ways that this might have happened. It could include records about their arrival in New South Wales, convict or not as the case may be, applications for land grants or leases, government employment, for example, as public servants, police officers, teachers or surveyors, licences for hotels or files relating to the administration of a person's last will and testament. Of these, some of the records that have the most relevance to family historians and the ones that help start the research journey are those relating to the arrival of their ancestors in New South Wales. As we will discover shortly, there are a number of ways that our ancestors could have travelled here in the 19th century and made their mark on New South Wales government records. This is why the New South Wales State Archives are such an important resource for family historians. The State Archives are generally arranged by the public office that created them rather than by a person's name. This is why searching the State Archives for references to individuals can sometimes be difficult. It means that researchers need to do some basic preparation by firstly coming up with some ideas about how their ancestors may have dealt with the government of the day before they start their research using the State Archives. Think of examples such as whether they were born here or did they come here from somewhere else? Did they work for the government? Did they have land? Are there some skeletons in the family history closet? Some ancestors may have appeared before the courts. The list goes on. State Records has published a range of useful indexes on its website to try to make it easier for family historians, but not everything has been indexed, so you will still need to do your homework. Once you get started on your research, your ancestor story will begin to take shape. But remember, it's always easier to work backwards from the present to the past. Begin by trying to find out as much as you can about your family. For example, how long have they been in New South Wales? Where did they come from? Quizzing your relatives may help. You should also study any available family papers or documents, such as family Bibles or photographs. You can then obtain birth, death and marriage certificates. Death certificates frequently indicate the length of time spent in New South Wales. This makes them very useful, but as this information is supplied by relatives or friends in attendance at the time, they may contain inaccuracies. And remember, always record your references and keep good notes, including details of where you found your information. This is essential, as you will almost certainly need to go back to it later. The spelling of surnames may change over time, and before starting your research, the possible variations should be considered. Never assume relationships with families of the same name. Always start from what you know and base your research on a firm line of descent using the available records. Start from the present. Remember, it's always easier to work from the present to the past. Now that we have considered some of the tips, do's and don'ts of family history, let's have a look at some examples from the key records. These are just a selection of New South Wales State Archives that may contain information about your ancestors. Between 1788 and 1842, about 80,000 convicts were transported to what was the colony of New South Wales. The starting point for any convict research is the convict indent, which is the list of convicts transported to New South Wales on a particular ship. The early indents only provide name, date and place of trial and sentence. Later indents contain more information, such as physical description, native place, age and crime. The indents may also contain annotations with the numbers of tickets of leave, pardons and certificates of freedom. A ticket of leave allowed convicts to work for themselves on condition that they remain in a specified area, reported regularly to local authorities and, if at all possible, attend divine worship every Sunday. Convicts with life sentences received pardons. The two main types of pardons were conditional pardon and absolute pardon. With a conditional pardon, the convict was free as long as they remained in the colony. The vast majority of convicts granted pardons received a conditional pardon. With an absolute pardon, the convict's sentence was entirely remitted. That is, they were free both within and outside the colony and could return to Britain. A certificate of freedom was only available to a convict with a finite sentence, for example, 7, 10 or 14 years, as it showed that a sentence had been completed. Convicts with a life sentence could only receive a pardon. The convict indent may also show details of any further crimes committed in the colony. State Records has published a guide to New South Wales State Archives relating to convicts and convict administration. This guide is designed to assist those who are researching convicts by describing the records in the archives relating to each stage of the convict's progress, starting with their transportation to their eventual freedom. The guide is available for sale from State Records and it can be ordered through the website. There are also some concise fact sheets available in our reading rooms or on our website. These fact sheets are called Archives in Brief. The archives in brief related to convict records are numbers 2 and 100. Now, not everybody arrived in New South Wales as a convict, and now we're going to have a look at some other records. A great many people paid their own passage for travel to New South Wales to make a new life for themselves and their families. There were also a number of people who arrived here after having worked their passage as members of the ship's crew. Others arrived as crew and then jumped ship, no doubt attracted by the opportunities available to them in the new colony. In addition, there were many thousands of immigrants who came to New South Wales as part of the various assisted immigration schemes that operated between 1828 and 1896. Assisted immigrants were brought to New South Wales to provide the skills required in the new colony, such as agricultural workers, mechanics and vine dressers. Because the various governments of the day had a direct involvement in bringing these immigrants to the colony, more information was recorded about them than for either the paying passengers or the crew. For example, the assisted immigration records generally provide valuable genealogical information on each assisted immigrant, such as native place and parents' names. Another group of records to consider are maps. State Records holds a collection of historical maps that can be helpful in showing how a place may have looked when a researcher's ancestors settled there. They often show that he or she received a land grant or lease and can link a person to a place, often explaining why a family moved to the area. We have 2 reading rooms where you can view state archives in original or copied form. The Western Sydney Record Centre is at 143 O'Connell Street, Kingswood, and the Sydney Record Centre is at 2 Globe Street, The Rocks in the city. There are over 60 kilometres of state archives in our Western Sydney Record Centre, where researchers can visit the reading room. A reader's ticket is required to access original state archives at the Western Sydney Record Centre. Anyone over the age of 15 may apply for a ticket. Applicants under the age of 18 years must have the application countersigned by a parent or legal guardian. A reader's ticket is valid indefinitely. Many of the more popular records have been copied onto microfilm or microfiche. Copied material is the same at both locations. All original records are stored at the Western Sydney Record Centre. You can find out which records are copied by consulting Archives Investigator. If the records you require are copied onto microfilm or microfiche, then you don't need to apply for a reader's ticket. These resources are on your doorsteps and we are waiting to help you to unlock some of the secrets and stories from the past.